What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Sooners on SI Postgame podcast here for Week 1. Oklahoma 35-3 victors over the Illinois State Redbirds of FCS. Ryan Chapman here, joined by the great Carson Field. Carson, how was it like last time we were all here? Field was being stormed. Alabama went down. That did happen today, just not here. That happened in Tallahassee. We had a little bit of a cut and dry season opener in Norman, America.
We did. This is second game, as you mentioned, that I've covered this team at Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. Less eventful than the first time I did, but that's a good thing for Sooner fans. Big win. They looked good tonight. Offense played well. Defense played well. Just a good performance overall, so it was quite the opener.
Offense played well at times, I would say.
Yes, I agree.
35-3, like we mentioned. It was the debut of Ben Arbuckle, the debut of John Mateer. It was a Oklahoma quarterback debut passing record. So a passing record in a debut game specifically for John Mateer. 30 of 37 through the air for 392 and 3 tutties. He added another one on the ground, Carson, that 70-yard touchdown that opened things up. We'll talk about the defense. We'll talk about all of it. Keontae Lewis had a couple of touchdown catches. He looked good tonight. But let's start with the offense. We'll dive into the first 2 drives, what went well, what went wrong, all that stuff. But what was your overall kind of 10,000-foot view of seeing Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer in action for the first time?
Yeah, it meshed pretty well. I mean, it's an opener. We talked about this before the game, that there would be some growing pains. It wouldn't be a perfect game. Mistakes would be made, and they certainly were. But it showed the potential that this offense has to be electric, which is something that Sooner fans have so badly wanted to see after last year's just constant stagnant offense. They showed the big play potential today. I mean, Mateer definitely looked the part. Some of those transfer receivers looked the part. Freshman running back Torrey Blaylock looked good. I mean, there were a lot of positives, certainly some negatives, but more positives than negatives, and that's what Sooner fans ultimately wanted to see tonight.
495 yards of total offense when it was all said and done. Way slanted to the passing side of things. It was not the ideal start, though, Carson. Oklahoma rolls out there. First off, you didn't see Jaden Ott as a running back until the last series of the third quarter, I believe. We'll talk about that. No Heath Ozida, no Derek Simmons, no Michael Fasusi tonight. Jacob Sexton only played basically the first 2 possessions, and he was kind of got checked out. It was Luke Baklenko for a lot of it at left tackle. Before Sexton exited the game, though, 3 and out on the first possession. A whole lot of week 1, just nothing of that looked good. Oklahoma looked like they were going to rebound. They got into a third down on their second possession, hit Jaron Kanek for what was going to be a 21-yard completion until ball pops out. He fumbles. After the game, John Mateer is basically like, first time he was playing live on offense in years and years and years, but it was a really nice bounce back from Jaron Kanek the rest of the game.
Oh, no, Kanek was fantastic after that play. He pretty much told reporters after the game that play happened, he forgot about it, and becomes a big contributor after that. 5 catches for 90 yards was his final total. Obviously, that includes the 21-yard catch that he fumbled, but he got them set up multiple times. One of them, I think he got down to like the 5-yard line. Torrey Blaylock cashed that in with a touchdown. He looked good. You're right, though, about the offensive line just having some shuttling in and out, but that's to be expected in an opener against a team like Illinois State. Not a bad team, but a lot harder teams on the schedule. Michigan, namely, next week. Not wanting to risk anybody, get anybody out there too early. I understand the vision about that, so probably a good thing. And I think Bill Bedenbaugh particularly probably knows, even with some running game struggles, some offensive line inconsistency, some different lineups, you're still going to beat Illinois State unless the bottom just falls out. And it didn't. It wasn't even close to falling out today. So all things considered, nothing to be alarmed about, I don't think.
Yeah, you had once Sexton exited the game, you had Baklenko at left tackle, Eddie Pierre-Louis at left guard, Troy Everett at center, Fabechi at right guard, and then it was Logan Hallen at right tackle. And that group together, then they did a little bit of mixing and matching after that. But the last 3 drives of the first half is what I think Oklahoma fans, if you want to go glass half full about the offense performance, that's what they're going to hold on to. 3 big drives. One of them was a 10-play, 94-yard, 5 minutes to march down the field and score. That's the one that ended in John Mateer's 7-yard touchdown run. That one had a 28-yard pass to Deion Burks on the sideline, a 27-yard pass to Jacob Jordan that went down at the 1-yard line. That second touchdown drive was a 4-play, 77-yard drive. Big chunk plays there. Then the big one. I think this is going to be the one that this is not good, Carson, for like running up a big score line because Oklahoma ran off 7 minutes and 21 seconds. But that third touchdown drive was the 15-play, 81-yard drive. Stuff like that, even against Maine, it felt like just did not happen last year where they were able to line up and over again just say, hey, they did it with the explosives on the second scoring drive, and they did the slow, methodical march that you want to do and just killed the clock, basically, in the second quarter.
I thought the same thing. They had multiple drives like that where they'd regress. John Mateer got sacked. I think it was the drive that Blaylock scored. He got sacked. They keep driving down the field slowly. No real big plays. I think Canix was probably the longest play on that drive. But they just methodically wore down Illinois State's defense, and that ultimately led to a touchdown. You need to do that in the SEC. This is a league that is won in the trenches. I know it's a cliche that Brent Venables has used plenty of times, but it's true. You have to be able to win these smaller battles, move methodically, and they showed the ability to do that, if nothing else, tonight.
Yeah, you look at that third scoring drive, and you just go boom, boom, boom. Javante Barnes, 1-yard gain. Javante Barnes was not good tonight, I didn't think. That was the Javante Barnes that you did not get against Ole Miss, did not get against Maine, but got every other time where he got what was there, which tonight wasn't a lot in the running game. But then you look at it, 16-yard pass complete to Satania, 4-yard to Keontez Lewis, 5 yards to Deion Burks. Javante Barnes runs into a wall a couple of times. Then it was Torrey Blaylock, 11-yard run. Burks, 12-yard run. The sack, like you mentioned, a couple of incompletions, got a false start, but got into a 1st and 15, got out of it. I mean, how many times last year? I know that you weren't here for the whole entirety of it, but if you said that, hey, Oklahoma had a situation where Mateer took a sack, they got into a 3rd and 14 on a drive, that was just over, converted. Then you get a false start, got to a 1st and 15. That also meant it was over, regardless of if you're playing Maine or stuff like that. So is it Illinois State?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. We know. We get it. But the fact that they were able to dig themselves a hole and get behind the chains a couple of times and then pick up a first down, that felt like night and day, even with some of the rocky nature of the offensive line play.
No, it showed a lot of resolve out of this new look offense that has Mateer, Arbuckle, all these receivers, 3 tight ends, 3 new offensive linemen, obviously 2 recruit linemen, but 3 transfer linemen. Just a totally new look offense that showed a lot of resolve, which, as you mentioned, didn't see a whole lot of besides games like Alabama last year. So that's a big plus. Shows that they're going to be able to win some of those battles, which I just talked about a minute ago, which is big in this league.
Alabama, who's now lost, I think 4 and 5 against FBS opponents since they beat Georgia early last year, which is not great. What'd you make of Deion Burks? We got to see 7 catches, 88 yards, got back in the end zone for the first time since his 3-touchdown debut. For me, Carson, this was the guy. It wasn't a whole lot of like, hey, he's just running past the defense and you're connected with a big deep ball. But we got to see Deion Burks in the open field a little bit. We got to see Deion Burks and Isaiah Satania get schemed open a couple of times, which just did not happen a year ago. And again, like one of the things we talked about coming into this thing was we don't want to come into Monday being like, was it vanilla or were they bad? They were obviously very vanilla. There were a couple of moments where the offensive line was bad, but we got to see Deion Burks stretch his legs and look explosive.
We do, and I don't think that I think we moved on too quickly from the fact that sideline catch early in the game, that was a huge momentum boost for the team. That was a great catch. I mean, where I was sitting on the sideline, I couldn't tell if it was a catch, but it very clearly was with no booth review, no challenge. And that was a huge play. Obviously, the touchdown was a big play for them and for him. And just kind of getting back out there, being healthy again, that's massive. Burks, obviously, we knew the talent he had. Last year's season opener against Temple really showed that. So it was good to see him just kind of thrive again.
Yeah, and that's something, too, that when we talk about a lot of these guys, the ones that return, when it was about rebuilding confidence, things like that. For Burks, I don't think it was as much a confidence thing because he wasn't getting open, he wasn't getting the big explosive plays in those 3 games early on that he played last year. He had a bunch of catches, all like underneath stuff, things like that. But for him just to take some hits, because he took a couple of shots today, popped straight back up, looked totally fine, was all smiles in postgame when he talked to us. I thought that was big to make that competitive catch on the sideline. I thought that was big for him there, similar for Kanik. And then you flip over a guy that wasn't here last year, but you had Keontez Lewis who made the plays. He was crossing over into OU territory where The pass interference flag came, but he still made the really, really nice catch with the guy draped over him. Got a couple of touchdown balls. I think that Isaiah Satania was probably a little bit of a victim of they were being vanilla, which we knew was going to happen coming into it. He got a couple of passes behind the line of scrimmage, a couple of short balls. I have to imagine they're going to unwrap him in a big way next week. But I thought the beneficiary was Keontez Lewis, because that was one of our questions. Who was going to be that third guy? You feel good about Burks. Everything we've heard about Satania has been good. I thought Keontez Lewis passed that with flying colors tonight.
He absolutely did. And that second touchdown of his was just, that's the play that OU fans have drawn in their minds for so long. Sure, it was a blown coverage, but just that perfect ball from Mateer to the corner of the end zone that Lewis caught was a beautiful play. Lewis looked really, really good, and makes you wonder about this method we've talked about of OU going after players that might not have that star power recognition, that name recognition, Jim Nagy finding guys. And Keontez Lewis, someone that played at Southern Illinois last year, had a great season there, but people I'm sure were questioning, oh, it's Southern Illinois. How is he going to translate to OU football? The answer, at least from game one, is really, really well. Still a guy like Giovanni Gibson not healthy. He's someone also from the FCS level that could be a big factor for this team. So I think that was, like you said, a bright spot. On Satania, though, I was impressed by that punt return that got called back.
He had first off, Danny Okoye, poor guy. He came through, and I was sitting next to the great Tom Green, and him and I both looked at each other like, well, that one's coming back. Okoye comes off the field, and Miguel Chavis just comes ripping down the sideline. You're just like, well, that's not what you wanted from Danny Okoye. But Satania was great in the punt game.
He was, and that specific one that got called back because of the block in the back, I mean, I think he was down at the 10-yard line, something like that. He looked really good, shows that flashiness, probably a little bit less scared to return punts against a team like Illinois State, a game that you're winning comfortably. But when he does get an open field, I'm excited to see what he can do in the rest of the 11 regular season games.
4 official punt returns for Isaiah Satania, 15.8 yards per return. Pretty darn good there. And he brought some juice to the stadium as well. Real quick on Keontez, 9 catches, 119 yards, 2 scores. The 9 catches and the 119 yards obviously led the team. This is one of those things that we were talking about. Hey, Oklahoma's going to have to go another week with that 100-yard rusher. It was until May last year we kept bringing it up. No 100-yard rusher, no 100-yard receiver. At least they scratched one of those bad boys out there, which was good. I thought that John Mateer was just really, really comfortable. He had the one interception, which he talked about after the game, that first off, he broke away from the route over the middle a little early. Then as he's scrambling, a little bit of a miscommunication of exactly where that break was going to come out. And one of the things we had previewed coming in is I just don't want to see big conferences having to be had on the sideline of you need to be here, there. I thought that's the closest we got to like Mateer and the receivers not necessarily being on the same page. But Mateer was the one who basically said, hand up. I put that ball in the wrong spot as far as where Burks was going to come out of that break. Still was just like a yard or two behind him. Now, thankfully for John Mateer, A, it's Illinois State, and B, the OU defense, which we'll talk about here in a bit, was really, really, really good. So Illinois State went nowhere, had to settle for a field goal. But as far as that goes, I thought there was one other. There was the deep ball that he tried to take the shot to Satania early that was just Satania was running down the left hash. The ball ended up on the right hash. It was just not the best throw there as far as either Satania needed to break over or I don't know who was at fault there. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty buttoned-up night for Mateer in the passing game.
Yeah, I don't think anyone, at least no one should have expected a flawless first game from Mateer in his opener with OU. New system, obviously played with Arbuckle, but these are all new guys around him as far as receivers, running back, linemen. So it was, you're going to make mistakes even against a team like Illinois State, but 30 for 37, breaking a debut record for OU. I mean, that's pretty hard to beat. There are worse teams on the schedule than Illinois State for OU this year, too, with Temple, Kent State for sure. Maybe Temple, the jury's still out there. They won their opener against UMass, so you don't know, but
don't doubt the Minutemen, my friend.
Sure. But
or doubt them.
But point being, Illinois State's not a horrible team.
Yeah.
Definitely not your run-of-the-mill FCS team. So it's not the challenge you're getting in the SEC, but it's a challenge to a degree. You're going to make some mistakes. Overall, Sooner fans should be very happy with what they saw from John Mateer.
Did think it was total weak sauce from Illinois State to, after the interception, it was 4th and 4 on the plus 17. It was still just 21-0 at that point.
Break the shutout.
They went for the field goal. I understand. They had their backup quarterback in. I get it. We'll hit that here in a second, but go for it, man. Like, what do you... you're cashing a check.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Go for it.
You're not going to win the game unless you score touchdowns. It seemed like a moral victory they were taking at that point.
We'll see. Let's get to the offensive line. Let's start there, and then we'll work our way back to the running backs. I thought that they were fine for the most part in the passing game. Brent Venables basically was just like, yeah, they're rotating guys in and out with a couple guys missing, so that was tough. He thought it was fine there. But the spot where this opener felt like last year's opener was in the running game. It wasn't like there were exactly big gaping holes where they were moving bodies off. When Torrey Blaylock when they decided to give Torrey Blaylock some run, it got a little bit better as he was decisive, hitting the hole hard. I would say that for me, based off of one game, if I was just re-ranking it, I would put Torrey Blaylock above Javonte Barnes on next week's depth chart. But I think a lot of that was just due to the fact that they have more depth, yes, but if Luke Baklenko is going to play a lot of left tackle, it might be week one jitters, stuff like that. But I was not very impressed with him. I was not super impressed with Logan Howland yet again. And I thought that they had much more work, like positive work done on the interior than at tackle. And yes, I get it that they had to throw Baklenko in there on the third possession. I get it that Logan Howland had to kick out. But I was very whelmed with the offensive line performance in the running game.
Yeah, and we talked about this a second ago. A lot of it's just figuring out who that group is in week one against a team like Illinois State, game that you're winning comfortably, some guys facing some bumps and bruises, just trying to see what works and what doesn't, you pointing out some of the things that didn't work. Hopefully, for the Sooners' sake, that leads to better run game in future contests.
Yeah, Illinois State ended up with 1 sack, 4 tackles for loss. OU, 103 net rushing yards, 3.2 yards per carry. That's just not good enough against Illinois State. And to me, that wasn't like week one, new offense, stuff like that. That was a little bit of it was Javonte Barnes getting a little bit more run than maybe he should have. But and the other thing, too, is that Jade Knott was clearly being held out precautionary. Like, they tossed him back there for the couple of kickoffs, but the first one being a touchback, the second one went to Peyton Bowen. Then I kind of felt bad for Jade Knott because when he finally got to start running his first carry, he gets the ball, looks up, 2 white shirts in the backfield, and he's going backwards immediately. They then try to say, okay, well, scratch that. Let's throw it to him basically behind the line of scrimmage. That didn't go well either, and I was like, okay, maybe just box up Jade Knott and try this again next week. But for me, that was like fully on the offensive line. I mean, it's not Jade Knott's fault that there's 2 white shirts in the backfield.
No, those plays were totally blown by the offensive line. That screen pass, too, didn't have any room whatsoever. I think, like you said, probably best for him to just take his medicine, get a little healthier before a team like Michigan comes into this place next week.
Yeah, one thing I did like, though, when they moved late in the game to Febechi Wiwu going to left guard, Ryan Foje came in at right guard, I thought that was a much more physical interior, especially when Jake Michla, the Stanford transfer, came in. He got the last 4 drives maybe. I thought that unit, I think there are pieces there with, if you go Febechi left guard, Michla center, and Foje right guard, I think there are some pieces there. And then that opens up the door, Carson, to, okay, we know that Michael Pasusi, he had the heat-related episode the Tuesday of week 0, so 2 Tuesdays ago. Think that was more of a precautionary thing. How much more comfortable do you feel throwing a true freshman left tackle out there if he's playing next to your veteran and Febechi Wiwu at left guard, as opposed to either a Heath Ozida or an Eddie Pierre-Louis, who are just much more junior players, less snaps in college football? Like, I think that might open the door to saying, okay, well, if he's playing next to Febechi, I feel a little bit better about that. And then you can get a Sexton out at right tackle or Howell. Like, I think that's a unit that you could work with. I don't know if they're ever going to be dominant in the run game.
Sure.
But it might be a situation where you go a little bit back to air raid life, right? Where, hey, between Burks and Satania, you've got some swing pass. You have the ability to do the short passing game to kind of, fake rushing yards, kind of that situation. Like, I see pieces that you might be able to work with. Maybe not like week over week over week. It's perfect with some of the defenses they're going to play. Certainly we'll see that next week. But I was kind of okay with how the interior finished the game. But I do think that until we get some eyeballs on Michael Fasusi, I'm going to be a little dubious about this tackle stuff, unless they just make a big jump from week 1 to week 2.
No, I'm with you on that. I badly want to see Fasusi, especially after how well he played in the offseason, according to players and coaches time and time again, just constantly praising Michael Fasusi. He's someone that seems like he kind of forgot about his 5-star status and was like, okay, I'm just another freshman. I've got to play my way. And apparently he was great during camp. I'm really excited to see him out there. Saw him warming up today, so a little surprised he didn't see any action. But I think just his size, his athleticism, discipline, and learning from a guy like Fabechi could be a remedy.
Yeah, this coaching staff be doing that. That's kind of a staple of 4 years, where you kind of have to go through and be like, okay, who's warming up versus who's dressed out, going to stretch and stuff, but versus like, hey, who they hold out truly. I thought Torrey Blaylock, I know that a lot of the talk around Torrey Blaylock has been freshmen that we're excited about, dynamic, all that stuff, but also that Torrey Blaylock and Javante Barnes were the only 2 healthy running backs throughout fall camp. So a little bit of it was how much of it's earned, how much of it's report card, attendance, that kind of thing. I liked what I saw out of Torrey Blaylock. I thought he was decisive. I thought that obviously had some explosion to him. He was running through some stuff, even if he didn't always truck guys. He was falling forward, which I really, really liked. And he's really the only guy that found any kind of rhythm. Xavier Robinson, unable to get anything going when he was in there, just 2.1 yards per carry there. Mateer finished as your second best rusher if you don't count the one kind of Deion Burks jet sweep, that kind of thing. I liked what I saw to Torrey Blaylock. Not enough to not be like it should be Jade Knott's job or anything crazy like that, but I liked what I saw in the freshman.
No, I think the potential for Torrey Blaylock is huge. Father is a former NFL running back. Derek Blaylock played a long time with the Kansas City Chiefs. And Torrey, like you said, the big thing that stuck out to me was his explosiveness. Obviously had that 1 touchdown, but he also caught a pass, which I think went for about 10 yards. Was really just consistently getting several yards every play, which is good. Didn't really see that out of Javante Barnes, Xavier Robinson. Robinson, to your point, a little bit disappointing after the last time he was on this field, carved up Alabama. Didn't really see that tonight, which was a little bit surprising, but Blaylock, the potential is huge for him.
Yeah, for sure. 4-10 on third down, that's not going to be good enough.
No.
Obviously, I am a little bit willing in like a season 1 opener I know we all went through the PTSD of last year, whether you're covering it, watching it, whatever. Not excusing it, I'm just saying, hey, I would like to see Ben Arbuckle have a chance to improve that stuff, especially as next week they're going to open up the playbook, and then from there, I don't think there's any more vanilla the rest of the way. It's kind of just like, because once you get into either Temple or Kent State in those next 2 games with that bye week, and then Auburn, obviously, like for Temple, you're going to be able to run the same stuff you ran for Michigan, which is going to be a lot. Then once you get to Auburn and then the bye week for Kent State, you'll be able to run all that stuff. So I don't think vanilla is going to be an issue. So I am willing to be like, 1 more week, let's see what that thing looks like. But obviously, that Michigan defensive front is going to be a different animal. We'll see that. Anything else on the offense that stuck out to you before we flip to the other side of the ball?
Not particularly. We've covered most of it. I was really impressed with the receiving core. They had a lot to prove with obviously not being the highest ranked group of receivers coming into OU. They looked really good. And again, big shouts to Deion Burks. He looked the part tonight.
Yeah, I think that Deion Burks still just about to take it because, like you said, even in the punt return game, I think you saw the potential, even though he wasn't as big a part
even if he didn't light up the stat sheet.
Yeah, exactly. Once he was catching the ball, Keontez Lewis. If you get those 3, plus Jaren Kanak looked dynamic, man.
He did.
I'm as dubious as anyone for the tight end room. Had the holding, can't have that. Had the fumble, can't have that, obviously. But get that thing going. Oh, also, I forgot when we were talking about the O-line. I love the one play that Foje got called for the hold. He knew it happened to, and he immediately he had whiffed, got the hold. He was on the ground, like smacking the ground, but you could tell he was just like frustrated because he knew it, which I like. That kind of speaks to, I think, what Bill Beanbo had said about those guys that welcome him and Fasusi. They both kind of welcome him. I'm not going to be 100% all the time, but as long as I learn from it. The other thing, too, is that Illinois State ended up with a pass interference on that play, so it was kind of like a get-out-of-jail-free card because they offset, but I thought that was good. Other side of the ball, the defense, Brent Venables talked about it. Basically, his recap after the game, which if you want to watch all of Brent Venables and everything he had to say, as well as Ben Arbuckle, John Mateer, all the guys, you can 1 of 2 spots. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. That's where you can find my story about John Mateer. Carson story about Jaron Kanik, who had our stock report, stock up, stock down. I had takeaways, all that fun stuff. And all the videos, hit the football tab, scroll, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Bookmark it, know it, love it. Or if you're a YouTuber, head over to the YouTube page, John Hoover Media, which is where you're probably watching this right now if you're already a YouTuber. But Brent Venables about the defense basically was like 2 thumbs up. Early, he basically said, like, I think his expectations are so high for the interior of the defensive line. He's like, we missed a couple tackles, broke contain on a couple of bootlegs, but otherwise it was pretty darn good. Only allowed 151 yards of total offense. They held Illinois State to 1 of 11 on third downs, and like we said, the only points came off the fact that Illinois State got the ball on the OU 22-yard line.
Opted for three. I'm not going to hammer him too hard. Like, we get it, but that was not a game-winning, not even efforting to win the game. Other than that, who stood out to you on the defensive side of the ball? Because I thought they were pretty much as advertised today. I thought Kendall Daniels proved a lot in his first game with the Sooners. Obviously spent 4 years at the rival up north, Oklahoma State, and he looked really good. A lot of things that I had heard from Oklahoma State is he's someone that had a lot of talent, didn't necessarily put it all out there every time, didn't necessarily have the discipline. He looked like he had all of it tonight, made some great open field tackles, was kind of a menace to the receivers that he faced. I thought he looked really good. Some of the depth pieces, like Owen Heineke, for example, he looked great. Taylor Wine, we've heard so many people raving about him throughout the offseason at defensive end. Taylor Wine looked really good. First career sack for him tonight. So, I mean, a lot of those players looked really good. Kobe McKenzie had a big game. There's no one that just stuck out as like they just looked like a liability out there. Like It was just a complete effort, I felt like. Yeah, you had Taylor Wine also knocked out Tommy Rittenhouse, which that's not something to laugh about, but his one quarterback curry was such a big hit that you had that there. Yeah, Kendall Daniels, super productive 2 years ago. Even last year with all the loafs on tape, which, I mean, I think everybody at Stillwater kind of gave up that cap. That's how you go 0-9 in conference play, but still had 5.5 sacks, all that stuff. But yeah, he was everywhere. I thought that in the first 2 or 3 drives, I thought Kobe McKenzie was all over the field. There was the possession right when it flipped to the second quarter where he absolutely smoked the running back in the hole, and he almost kept his balance, too, to get to Rittenhouse. I think the running back may have gotten a little bit of ankle. I thought that was good there. I thought that you had a ton of penetration from Jaden Jackson. I thought that R. Mason, you could tell that they were basically just like, they had circled him and said, this guy will not kill us today. And I thought that R. Mason was still kind of a handful. And then the best sign for me was Gentry Williams' second possession. One of those bootlegs that Oklahoma had lost contain on had given Illinois State a first down, and Gentry was immediately there. One of the things he was so good at 2 years ago, not just the interceptions, he was such a sure tackler. Like, play recognition of kind of some of those swing passes or quick passes behind the line of scrimmage, he would shed the receiver, and if nothing else, wrap up that ankle, and he was waiting for help, and no one was getting out of that. He had another one of those plays. I thought he looked fast. He did not look like a guy at all that was like that half second slow where you could tell, like, oh, am I wincing because I know my shoulder's about to get lit up, stuff like that. I thought Gentry looked fantastic for the little bit he played, and then Cortland Guillory, the true freshman, finally got to look at him. Physical. I like that. Yeah, he already is really good, but he is going to be a star for this defense. Really good to see him as a true freshman getting some game one experience and looking good doing so. I thought the secondary, to your point, I mean, Rittenhouse, what did he have, 22 yards before he got hurt? He's a good quarterback. Like, even if he plays at the FCS level, he is not a bum at quarterback. He is a pretty good quarterback, and the secondary just gave them nothing. And obviously, a lot of that's credit to the pass rush, but I thought the DBs looked really solid. Peyton Bowen, a guy that Brent Venables highlighted in postgame, he basically was like, some people said Peyton Bowen had a quiet camp. Well, that's just because no one really asked about him. But it's like we talked about. Peyton Bowen, he had told us he was kind of hurt his senior year a little bit in Denton. He was playing through injuries his first 2 years in Norman. He's finally healthy again. I think you saw that quick trigger, especially when he had Boganowski beside him. He was kind of the guy in the first quarter getting everyone organized on the back end. Then when Peyton Bowen and Robert Spears-Jennings came at the very, 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 very end of the first quarter, it almost kind of felt like, I'm not saying this is, it kind of felt like a first quarter suspension type thing, because the second there were like 50 seconds left in the first quarter, it was like, boom, you're back out there. But I thought that RSJ and Peyton Bowen were fantastic, which is what you'd expect back there.
I liked the rotation at linebacker. Samuel Mosigo ended up leading the way with 8 tackles. He had his first sack. Illinois State, not the team that I think could expose issues, things like that. But I thought that Oklahoma's defense played really. I mean, the only thing you could have wanted more probably is some more sacks or things like that. Ended up with a couple of sacks, 5 tackles for loss. But I think at that point you're just being greedy, especially when it was 151 yards of total offense.
No, totally agree. Definitely, there wasn't a whole lot of sexiness as far as sacks, takeaways, stuff like that. Overall, it was great, though. The only thing that worried me a little bit was some of the contain of Rittenhouse. I know he had a really good run before he got injured. Winkers Wright had a couple good runs. And, I mean, that's going to happen against teams that aren't horrible. You're going to allow some decent-sized plays. I just know in this league of dynamic quarterbacks we've seen over the last few days in the SEC. I mean, Jackson Arnold, our old friend, looked fantastic on the ground.
Running back Jackson Arnold is so back.
Yep, Bo Pribble at Missouri looked really good on the ground the other night. There are a lot of running quarterbacks in this league, and that's something that I think, I'm not saying OU's bad at that, they just need to get a little bit better for when, I mean, heck, Bryce Underwood comes to town next week.
Yeah, my first thought on some of those runs, I was like, the Laura Sellers, if that happened, that would have been a big game. But then I was like, it's week 1. I think, too, part of all of this, 35-3, it's not the, I think I had picked like 59-6. Certainly wasn't anything close to that or anything. But I think one of the lessons from week 1 is that it's still week 1. You look across the country, Texas and Ohio State. Now, much different caliber to play one of those games versus an FCS team. I get it. Like, trust me, I know. But when you look at it, let's go a couple nights ago. Georgia Tech and Colorado. You had Georgia Tech, Haynes King fumbles the first mesh point. You then have a snap go over somebody's head. You have another fumble. Like, we saw that. We saw how sloppy. Part of it was due to weather. Part of it was due to week 0. The Iowa State-Kansas State game was in the first half. We saw how tough it was for offenses in both the marquee matchups that bookended the day, whether it be Ohio State, Texas, LSU, Clemson. I think that that's the kind of game I'm expecting next week. Not to look too far ahead as far as whether Oklahoma's offensive line takes a huge step forward or not. Michigan's front 7, I think, is that good. We saw it kind of at the tail end of last year, even with the opt-outs in the bowl game against Alabama. You look at it like, I'm expecting this thing next week to kind of be a low scoring. I don't know if either team's going to get to 30 points, that kind of thing. And if that's the case, we did not see takeaways today from the OU defense, but we know it's a lot of the same guys last year. Maybe not a house call like Billy Bowman, but I think that those really think those turnovers are in there, especially this was a lot of base defense stuff. You're talking about a true freshman quarterback who had a strong outing today against New Mexico and Bryce Underwood, but Brent Venables being able to roll everything out there and really just say, all right, let's try to confuse this freshman quarterback. Like, flat out, I think Bryce Underwood is going to throw the ball to Kendall Daniels one time or something like that next week, and we'll see if they can make the play.
Oh, it's very possible. I admittedly haven't been able to look too much into Bryce Underwood's stat line from game 1.
There's a lot of just I was doing a lot of just box score watching because we were obviously a little bit busy, so I don't have a big breakdown of how he played. I do know that he only did not really carry the ball, just had I think a sack and one, so he wasn't really using his legs tonight, but he was fine as far as completion percentage, but it's going to be a different animal going from New Mexico to Oklahoma, just as we talked about with Oklahoma.
It flips both ways, though,
It'll be interesting. I am fascinated what this thing looks like because obviously Mateer's going to have the experience advantage in college football, but this will be the biggest game he's ever played. It'll be the biggest game that Bryce Underwood's ever played, stuff like that. It'll be really intriguing. As far as special teams go, is our first look at Tate Sandell. All he had to do tonight was kick extra points, so didn't have to. The only time it would have been like kind of a 50-yarder, that was the 3rd and 14 that Torrey Blaylock picked up. So good there. I thought Ulrich was fine punting the ball. He was not given. He had a 50-yarder. He only had to punt twice, an average 47.5. One of those things I was just like, yep, 2 thumbs up. The punt game looked fine for the 2 times, but we'll see what that thing looks like next week.
Yeah, one of Ulrich's, I think it was his first one, looked kind of ugly, and it just got this awesome bounce. But part of me wonders if that's intentional. This man is used to punting after playing for Kennesaw State last year. That team was not good.
He knows what he's doing.
He was the MVP on that Owls team last year. I was pretty impressed with what I saw. Obviously, like you said, Sandell didn't get a whole lot of game action just because there were no field goal attempts. But he looked good in warm-ups. I was tracking both him and Austin Welch. So I at least right now, I don't think that'll be a big issue.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing, Brent Venables going back to calling the defense, he was kind of asked about that, and he basically was like, listen, even in the past 3 years, if I wasn't the one like actually radioing it in, he's like, you're always calling it in your head so that you can add to the conversation, things like that. So that was easy for him. Didn't expect that to be a big issue today. But Carson, I think that kind of closes the book on this one as we are off to Oklahoma and Michigan officially. College game day after the 2020 season. Game day was technically here for Bedlam, but remember, it wasn't here. So after basically a big, long hiatus since 2012, game day 2 times in 2 years back here in Norman for Oklahoma and Michigan. That will be 6:30 next Saturday night on ABC. You can find all of our coverage all week long, Oklahoma Sooners, on SI.com. Carson and I getting after it, writing stuff. Hoove running point from home, getting after it, writing stuff as well. Stay tuned to the social medias. We'll be picking up a 4th team member starting next Saturday. Can't wait to tell you guys all about that. That should be a ton of fun too. But as always, a big weekend. Sunday, we'll have a ton of stuff on the site. Monday evening, we will talk to all the players ahead of this big Michigan battle. Tuesday, mid-morning, around lunchtime, we'll talk to Ben Arbuckle. We'll talk to Brent Venables again as they preview Michigan. So all that stuff will be coming to the website, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Carson, final thoughts on this opener here as Oklahoma puts the Redbirds to bed 35-3?
It's good to be back. A lot to like about what we saw. Not everything perfect, but that's to be expected in an opener. I'm just glad to be covering football and very excited to see those sick helmets from Michigan next week.
It's going to be fun.
But that's a tangent. That's going to be an awesome game. Hope you guys are staying tuned. We're doing a great job, killing it right now. A lot of content, so make sure you're staying tuned.
Yeah, tons and tons and tons coming to the site as always. Next week, good fight song battle, good uniform battle. It's just going to be classic. The second time ever Oklahoma and Michigan have stepped on the same football field. Why not? Why not? As we go throughout the week, we'll if there's any updates on Fasusi, Sexton, Howland, or not Howland, excuse me, Ozida, and Derek Simmons. There we go. Sorry, it is 12:30.
It's late.
So, yeah. If there's any updates on those guys, we'll let you know if we get anything more on Jaden Ott that would lend you to believe they're going to do more holding of him out, anything like that, and hopefully here pretty soon we'll start to get some updates from Brent Venables on Giovanni Gibson as he's back up and running. He was dressed out today.
Oh, okay, I didn't see him.
To like warm up and stretch. Never going to play, that kind of thing.
Right.
But he had at least hit the point where they deemed it like, hey, dress out while you stretch, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So we shall see. But for our man Carson Field for Who running point back in Sooners on SI Studios, I'm Ryan Chapman. We'll talk to you guys here on the podcast next Wednesday. Have a big post-game pod as well. But make sure you head to the site, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. The important thing is, number 18 ranked Sooners off to a 1-0 start in 2025. And we will learn a lot about this offense and the improvements they can make next week, 6:30 p.m. For Carson, I'm Ryan. We'll talk to you next time.